Hello there. I'm Joe Ruggiero, and welcome to my podcast, Inspired and the People Who Inspired Me. I hate to say this again, but you're going to be impressed by this guy. I saw him lecture, and I just was riveted by his ideas for living a healthy life. Now, this isn't just nutrition, but it is inspiring. And I was inspired. I approached him, and I'm just lucky enough that I was able to get Bob Beck in, who is going to publish a book very soon, to be my guest. So, Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me today.
Well, I'm thrilled, and I would love you to go down the list of how you feel we, at a certain age, can live a healthier, productive life.
Great. Well, this has been a journey for me, and I've lived a little bit here. I'm 63 and raised a family, and I've done lots of things in business, and I've produced 1,000 projects on television and movies and so forth. And I decided to give back and self-reflect on things. And so I started studying self-development about 5 years ago. And I listened to podcasts, I read books, I followed people that were in the field. And I started with happiness. What is happiness? And then when I got into it, I realized that, happiness is really different things to different people, but there's ways to get to a point where you can feel happy. And so I started to essentialize what those things were, and I wanted to share that with other people and create a way that would be easy for people to sort of open any chapter of my 10-chapter book and get one idea that could help them.
Right.
And so that's how my book, 10 Ways to Feel Better, came about. And that's how my ideas came forth. I just started working on essentializing what are things that people can do in their life to feel better. And ultimately then, in some cases, be happier. And so these are the 10 things that we're going to talk about that I came up with based on my research.
Well, didn't Charlie Brown say, or wasn't there a song in the play, Happiness Is?
That's right.
And of course... ... Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, we know Rodgers and Hammerstein in The Sound of Music.
Right.
Raindrops on Roses.
That's right. That's right. And one of the things that came to my realization was that, people say money can't buy happiness, and you hear that all the time. And I had a very good friend, sold his company for $200 million, and he had his own jets, and he had a boat, and he had, a beautiful family and big house and all the things that you would think people work towards or dream about in their life. And, people think, I'm going to work so hard and I'm going to do all these things to get to this place and then I'll be happy. Well, he was miserable. And because within himself, he did not meet himself where he was and look at himself in the mirror and really try and become the person that he wanted to be. Instead, he focused on all these other things, and he self-destructed, and he died at a very young age, and it was a big wake-up call for me. I had another friend that self-medicated himself to his own demise as well, and I looked at these people, and both of them had beautiful families. They had things, houses and things, but they were not happy within themselves. And so that was another reason why I really wanted to understand how people can find a place and meet themselves where they are, where they can start to work on themselves internally. And so these are some of the bases for where I came up with these ideas.
Well, I only got 5 of them. And I thought that you were right on the numbers with the 5. So
Thank
do you
you.
want to begin with
Sure.
the numbers?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first one that I kind of just touched on is, accept yourself, accept where you are in life, your age, where you are, your condition of yourself, and but a big one that I think a lot of people have trouble with is forgiving yourself for things that you regret, and also forgiving others that have perhaps done you wrong, as they say, or hurt you. That is something that is a burden to carry, and it's something that weighs us down. And, they say forgiveness will set you free. It's really true. I sold a business to a guy, and he ran the business into the ground, and then he sued me and said it was my fault.
Oh, geez.
And, it cost me a lot of money and grief, and I had built that business up with all of my heart and passion, and, he ruined it. He was getting 5,000 clicks on the website per month, and he changed the website despite my recommendations, and he did other things to the company. And it was a real shame because it was a creation that I had created. It was a great business. And I held this anger towards this guy for a while, and it took me a period of time to really get through that. But once I was able to get through that and basically release that anger and forgive him for what he had done, it was a huge enlightenment, because I always now try and look forward. I look at the past from a lens of appreciation and good memories, but I think we should try and not look at the past as to, boy, I wish I was still 30. I wish I could still, ski like I used to ski and things like that. Because the reality is that we have to accept ourselves where we are and realize that, we can't run like we used to run or do things that we used to do, but there are things that we can be grateful for that we have today. And so, the first one is really, forgiving and then accepting ourselves for where we are today.
My grandmother, who was from Sicily, always forgave, but she never forgot.
Right.
And she always taught me that.
Yeah.
I'll forgive, but I won't forget.
That's right. That's right. And I tell people, keep those things that are painful to us, that are hard to forgive, acknowledge them, but put them in a little virtual box and close the door and realize that they're there, just like your grandmother. I acknowledge, I will not forget that, but I'm not going to let that affect how I'm going to be today.
Right. Can we go on? Because
Sure.
I want to make sure we get all
Yes.
10 involved.
Another one is create things to look forward to.
I love that.
That's an easy one to think about, but really it's an important one, because whether it's a phone call to a grandchild or whether it's a TV show that you can't wait to see or a movie that's coming out, having things to look forward to keeps us going.
That's right.
Allows us to have something to either write down or to remember and to be excited about. And we have to have those things, because when we stop having those things, life becomes dull.
That's right. And even a luncheon with an old friend. or
Absolutely,
something. Yeah.
absolutely. So that's a good one. Another one is give what you can. Now, when we talk about giving, people think about giving as money. And it is money sometimes, and giving financial help to organizations or people or individuals or so forth. But giving is also listening to people. It's giving your time. They say with your children, the most valuable gift you can give your children is your time. And I really do believe that. And I'm so grateful that I realized that when my boys were growing up, and I spent time with them, coaching them in baseball, reading stories to them, the things that I know are part of their experience and created them to be who they are today, that bond. And we're super close today as a result of those little things that we did when they were growing up. So that was something that I gave. And also, you can be there for someone, people that are important to you, just to be the person that they can come to and confide in. That's a way of giving, again, your time and your
True
ability
friendship.
to help people when they need it. So giving is a widespread thing, but it's something to be conscious of, because studies have shown that giving actually helps us in our mental state ourselves.
And that can be through your talents as well.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. So giving is important. Another one is, find ways to feel grateful. Find things to be grateful for. We live in a society where there's a lot of pressure on people for material things. I want that new car. I want that certain type of lifestyle, house, all the things that in our society make us feel like we have a status so that we can have a self-worth. But, there's more important things that we sometimes overlook to be grateful for. For example, I'm very grateful, obviously, most of us are that have a family. I'm very grateful for my family at all times. I always think about how lucky I am to have a wonderful wife for 35 years that has been beside me through ups and downs and still is there for me. And my boys, who we have such a deep love for each other. And so I'm just so grateful and fortunate.
Are you Italian?
No, my dad was Armenian. And
Because,
yeah.
Family first.
That's right.
And
that's right.
that's
Well,
so
my dad
important.
was from the old country. He came here in 1957 to go to college, and he met my mom, who was American. So I'm sort of half and half, but I do have that old country culture. But
interesting.
So grateful. Another thing that is really important that I found is seeking connections, not isolation. So when we're able to be isolated. We're able to go on our phones and lose ourselves in scrolling through all kinds of things. We can zone out at home on the television and watch things. And those are things that we do by ourselves. And, my dad used to say, solitude is a luxury. In other words, solitude is important. We have to find time to be with ourselves.
Absolutely.
But we also should try and find time to seek connections. And nowadays with social media, people have all these friends on Facebook and so forth, and some of them are and some of them really aren't. They're acquaintances or people that we may have met. But, I tell people you only need one friend, but you need a friend, or you need something to love, like a pet or something, so you're not by yourself, because connections help us. They make us feel better, and studies have shown it makes us healthier. So seek connections, not isolation. That's an important one, Joe.
Absolutely.
Another one is, and again, these are not things that are rocket science. You know these things, your audience knows these things, but it's just a reminder of some things that I've learned and I've studied have helped others to have a more fulfilling life and to feel better, both mentally and physically. And that is look for ways to have a positive mindset. Studies have shown, they did this study of these two nuns that grew up together in a seminary, and one was more of a negative mindset, and one was more of an optimistic, positive mindset. And at the end of the study, the nun that had the more positive mindset was able to overcome illness quicker. She was able to overcome setbacks quicker. And as a result, she had a happier general life. And it seems obvious, but sometimes we forget that we can get caught up in what we don't have, or what went wrong, or this health problem, or this family member that disappointed us. There's a lot of things that we could look at and dwell on that are negative, but there's the other side of it, which is, you should get better from an illness. Most people do.
The power of positive thinking.
That's right. And so it's an old idea, but it's something that I think we should be reminded of, because, you turn on the news and it's always negative at first, because that is an instinctual device that goes back to when we were cavemen and cavewomen, and the caveman would be warning of danger of saber-toothed tigers coming in and attacking them. So it's our instinct to want to protect ourselves from danger, and the news producers know that. So that's why there's always, if they say it bleeds, it leads. There's always a big negative story, usually first, that is something that makes us feel like, oh, I'm glad I'm not in that situation. So I don't watch the news as much as I used to, although it's important to be informed. That device is clearly used, and it doesn't help us to be in a mindset of, this is going to be bad for me, and that's going to be a negative situation. So, we can control certain things on how we are in that state. So I recommend trying to look at more optimistic things. You know, I used to be a big scary movie guy. And scary movies are great. I still love, especially the classics, you
I
know,
don't
Frankenstein. But I now love comedies.
Yeah.
And I like to laugh. And I look at some of that stuff that I used to watch, and I think, you know, that was the old way that I used to think. I used to like to get scared and so forth. And now I like to laugh more and find humor in life.
I like to listen to interviews.
Yeah, okay. Me too.
I think that it's very interesting how people got from here to there.
That's right.
And I've often said to my producer, we should call this Journeys. But I really believe that inspiration is important. I've even said to my kids, give back.
Right.
And if you can inspire people just from cooking, you are a cook, from
That's
what I
right.
understand too.
I am.
And make people inspired.
Right.
Think of something. Use their brain.
Yeah. And you know, on cooking, cooking is something that there's a couple things about cooking. Number one, the dinner table is the great family unifier.
That's right.
And if you can bring your family together or people that are important to you for an hour or two a week or a month at the dinner table and discuss things, the food is what brings everybody together, but it's really a device to actually connect us with each other. And the other thing about cooking is, you know, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to it.
That's true.
You start something, you put your love into it, and then you create it, and your people enjoy it. So
Well, you know, growing up in an Italian family,
Yeah.
Sicilian on one side and Italian on the other, and no middle of the road, we used to sit down to Sunday dinner, and it would be 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my daughter married into the French side
Oh.
of the family, and she says they sit down for 4 to 5 hours.
wow. And that's great. You know, those are golden moments
Oh,
when
yeah.
we're sitting there with family,
Absolutely.
enjoying food and drinks and discussing things. So
Right.
that's awesome. So, you know, look for ways to find a positive mindset and think that way. But it's really it's a state of mind. It's a decision that we make. It's a consciousness that we come to at some point to be that way. You decide to be a positive person and look for the optimistic things that you can, or some people stay as a negative person. So it's a choice. And it's not easy, but life is not easy. But these are things to remind us that, hey, these are techniques that if you keep in mind, you can actually feel better with. The next one we all know, and that's something that's nutrition, sleep, and exercise.
Oh, yeah.
And we all know about this. We know what's good for us and what's not good for us to eat. Sleep is something that's interesting. I talk to a lot of people that have problems sleeping. And there's some things that we can do to improve our sleep. One of the things is, you know, we have so many screens now. We have our laptop, we have our phone, we have our television, we have our iPad, we have all these different screens emitting blue light on us. And that's not good to do a couple hours before you're trying to go to sleep, because it stimulates the internal system of our brain, and it's hard to sort of wind down and get a good start to your sleep. So I recommend people to read. Old-fashioned book, anything, read a paper, something, because that is a way to help us go to sleep. And also to avoid a lot of activity when we're trying to go to sleep. But a good night's sleep is really important. You know, 7 hours, 8 hours is optimal, and we all know this. But the problem with a lot of people today is they're overstimulated by too many things.
Absolutely.
And so when they want to go to sleep, it's hard. And, you know, exercise is different for different people in different ages. We try and do things as we get older that are safe, so that we're not going to fall and get hurt. So there's different things that we can do, but it's good to have these three things as a triangle of consciousness: nutrition, sleep, exercise. Do you eat a piece of cake once in a while? I do. Do I eat a piece of candy once in a while? Sure. But I try overall to, you know, avoid fried foods and oversaturated fats and things like that.
Don't
And
take my ice cream away.
I love ice cream, and you know, I make my wife a rainbow sherbet with bananas like 3 or 4 times a week. Baskin and Robbins, there's a commercial. So those are some things that we know about that I like to remind people about: nutrition, sleep, and exercise. The next thing that is something that is a good one to keep in mind is try new things.
Absolutely.
You're never too old to try something new. And I'm always thinking about that. And, you know, you can't do certain things at certain ages, but there is things that you can do. As a matter of fact, as we get older and our physical abilities are less than they used to be when we were younger, so we can't go out and snowboard when we're 80, but we can try watercolors, we can try writing, we can try documenting our family history, organizing the photographs, and getting young people involved in preserving the family heritage and things like that. I just recently went through a huge purge of things that I decided I didn't need anymore, because I've been a collector my whole life. And I kept the things that were really, really important to me, and I purged a lot of things, and it's been great because it's allowed me to focus on projects and things that are really important to me at this time. And some of those are new things, like writing a book is a new thing for me. But I think it's something that sort of came to me, and I hope that it helps a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to getting it out there January 1st.
Absolutely.
So
Can't
trying
wait.
new things. Another one is, it's sort of a cliche, but it's something that's easy to remember, and that's become a victor, not a victim. And what we mean by that is that we've all had things happen to us. Like, for example, the guy that ruined my company, I sold to him. We've had things that have happened to us that have affected us negatively. And we have a choice to decide how we want to deal with that. Do we want to, I use the analogy of, remember the cartoon Winnie the Pooh? Mm-hmm. And he had the little friend, the donkey, Eeyore. And Winnie the Pooh was always happy. He was always looking for honey. He had lots of friends. He had a positive attitude. Well, his friend Eeyore was always had a cloud over his head, and he was, oh boy, this is going to take so long. And he was always, you know, sort of in a negative mindset. And, you know, we can get that way from things that happen to us. Or we can decide to triumph over obstacles in our life.
Interesting.
And so I look at things that way and see when something happens that's a negative to me or something that I wasn't expecting, okay, how can I triumph through this and come out on the other side in a strong way for myself? And release the anger or the regret or the, you know, disappointment on how this happened to me. So what I mean by being a victor is taking a negative situation and turning it into something that's triumphant for you that you can get through and look back on as another experience that you overcame in your life. So be a victor, not a victim.
Right, exactly.
And victim mentality is not a good look.
Well, people do have a tendency of being woe is me.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
Right.
So
yes, so that's a good one. And, you know, the last one is something that means something different to different people, and it is to have faith. And in my case, I happen to be Christian, and that's a very strong belief that I have, but I respect all people that have faith in different religions and so forth. But I think that faith gives us a moral compass in a lot of ways. It gives us a playbook to live our lives in a way that is millions of other people have in a good way. And that's something that came to me later in life. My parents didn't put a lot of religion into my growing up, but as I got older and I got married, my wife was a Christian. We got married in a Christian church and so forth. And so, you know, I experienced faith. It grew on me. and I studied it, and I'm in a men's group right now on Wednesday mornings with other men, and we read a book. We always have a book that we read and we talk about it, but it ends up being more talking about life, but more. There's a lot of stories of how having faith has gotten us through a lot of things that we say white knuckling it on our own would have been a lot more difficult. So that's the last one, is to have faith, and that means different things to different people. But I do believe, in my case and in many other cases, that having faith is good for us, and it helps us feel better.
I think you're so right. I love these 10 items.
Thank you.
Now, we're able to purchase the book in January, right?
Yes, it'll be on all the platforms.
I can hardly wait. And so our listeners can get this list in the book. 'Cause
That's right.
Each is explained in a chapter, right?
That's right.
Now, how did you come about speaking to assisted living groups?
Well, I've always had great relationships with seniors, grandparents, and I love people, and I always feel like people that are a little bit older than me or at my age, there's something to learn from them, and also I like to give back. So I just decided to try and go after that category of people out there, and it's been a great experience for me. I hear so many inspiring stories of people that have, lived through the Holocaust and
Yes.
come from other countries and, left their war-torn country with a suitcase and made a life here. And it's just, there's so many great lessons that I've learned from working with seniors, but I also work with other groups as well. So I just like to pass along things I've learned to people.
Well, as you know, I live in a facility, a residence.
Very nice.
That is independent.
Right.
We're able to come and go as much as we want, but
Right.
with our children moving away, I saw that my wife needed a little extra help, and we're really learning a lot from the people who we associate with who are also residents. They come from all over the country. They come from Canada, Mexico, none internationally, but yes, I should say so. But there is one woman who had a very interesting discussion with someone who was also a resident, but this lady was down on the United States. And, it's a long way to go. And this woman escaped from the Holocaust. And she said, "Have you ever lived in a communist country?" I love to listen to these conversations. And she said, "No." She said, "Well, you don't know how lucky you are to be here." And she went on and on about her plight coming with her sister to the United States. And it wasn't easy. And I also have a friend who actually gave me my first break, who was one of the children whose parents sent them to an orphanage in London. And he was adopted by two parents that weren't able to have children. And he thinks of them as saving his life because his parents perished in the Holocaust. And it just makes me so proud to be here.
Right.
But forgetting about that, just meeting all these people and listening to their individual stories is inspiring to me.
Yes.
Very
That's
much so.
great. That's great.
And I think that your idea of keeping the conversation going when you lecture, that it isn't really a lecture. You want to hear what they have to say.
That's right.
Back and forth. And what is your technique for eliciting? Because some people are a little embarrassed to share their stories. How do you get it out of them?
I've found that 95% of the people that I ask questions to in the audience happily share. Only 5% are reluctant, and you can tell that they're caught up in a little bit of a could be embarrassment or just they're private. They're not the type of people that like to share and talk. But most people like to have a discussion. We all do, just like this. We like to have a discussion, and it's one thing to be lectured to, but it's another thing to have a discussion about a topic that means something to us. And so that's what I try and do, and it seems to be working out pretty well.
Well, you must have had great parents, because for you to be able to come up with these 10 ways to live a better life, they must have instilled some kind of logic into your brain.
Thank you. And I did. I was so blessed to have two awesome parents. My dad was from the old country. Everybody loved him. He was the most friendly gentleman with manners that were, everybody liked my dad.
Were he or his relatives involved in the Armenian genocide?
The grandparents were. And the Armenians, when that happened, went all over the place.
Yeah.
They went to Lebanon and Iran and Syria, Jerusalem, and But my mother was a Pennsylvania farm girl from a very atheist family, actually, very scientific. My grandfather was an engineer at Alcoa Aluminum, very serious household, and so forth. And she was an avid reader. But when I was a kid, my mom was a leader. She would get in charge of the PTA. She would get in charge of the Girl Scouts. She would get in charge of the neighborhood association. And she'd get up in front of everybody and talk in front of everybody and take charge of these meetings. And I saw my mother as a boy do that. And it was something that I've never been afraid to get up and talk in front of people, because my mother gave me that inspiration.
How did you become a producer? Because I think that is really very interesting.
It was sort of by accident. I was in sales in industrial companies, and I got recruited to run a media company that had a sales team that was sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. And we took that company from $5 million to $35 million in 4 years. And we sold the products that went into the cameras to record onto. So all of a sudden I was in that industry. And from there, I started a camera rental company myself, my first entrepreneurial endeavor. And we took that from 5 cameras to 75 cameras and 40 tons of equipment. And that became something that I sold also. So I sold those 2 companies, and then I started building studios and doing production, because it was sort of a natural progression. And when I had my studios, I knew about the cameras, I knew how to produce things, and so that's how I became a producer, just sort of from the business side of things.
Can you share any stories with the famed people that you have interviewed?
Sure. I mean, now we were talking earlier about Mickey Rooney.
Right.
Mickey Rooney was, he's 5'3", I think.
Wow.
And a bundle of energy. He was married 8 times, including
Nice.
married to Ava Gardner,
Right.
who was a real knockout. And he came in, and, a lot of stars have what they call a rider, which is a list of things that they must have when they show up. You
I
must
did not
have
know
this. They must have their own bathroom. They must have their own dressing room. They must have this food, that food, these drinks. And a lot of times they don't even eat the food or drinks.
Red M&Ms or something.
Right. Well, there's a story about that. Another reason why they separated the M&Ms. But Mickey Rooney had one thing on his rider, which was a warm corned beef sandwich from Jerry's Deli.
Gosh.
And that's it.
That's
all he
interesting.
wanted. And he came bundling in. We were doing an interview about his work with Lucille Ball. It was a documentary about Lucy. And he came in, bundle of energy, and he looked at the makeup artist and said, "Shave my head."
Huh.
And she looked at me as the producer, and she didn't know what to do. He says, "Shave my head right now, shave my head." And
he had a great head of hair.
he did. But that's what he wanted at that moment. And so I said, "Okay, Mr. Rooney, if that's what you want, she'll gladly do that." And so shaved his head, and next thing you know, he had a buzz cut. He goes, "Okay, let's go." Went into the room. We had him for 4 hours, and he was done in about 45 minutes. He just was one story after another, talked really super fast. He said, "Okay, I'm done." Walked out, said, "Where's my sandwich?"
Oh,
Got his
gosh.
sandwich, and he was out of there.
He didn't forget.
No, that was the one thing, the warm corned beef sandwich from Jerry's Deli. So, it's those little golden moments that I had with people
Right.
that are really things that I remember. And
What did he have to say about Lucy?
Oh, they worked together on a couple of different projects on television, and she was a incredible person, very funny on camera, but very smart in terms of what the audience perceived.
Absolutely.
And she was very conscious of that. And when she was with Ricky, Ricky was a genius. He was the first one to come up with a 3-camera shoot,
Right.
and also to shoot on film versus Kinescope, which the Honeymooners was shot on Kinescope, and that's
Right.
why the quality is so bad. But I Love Lucy still holds up because it was shot on film and it was preserved. Then they had the forthright Lucy herself had the forthright when they had Desilu to keep Star Trek on the air when the network wanted to cancel it. And Star Trek was the first show that was ever saved by a letter writing campaign. But she was the studio head that made the decisions that said, we're going to keep this show on the air despite what the network said. And sure enough, in the second season and third season, it got huge. And now, as you know, it's one of the greatest science fiction franchises of all time. So not only a comedian, but a very savvy business person.
Well, I was looking at an interview that Lucy, her daughter, gave.
Right.
And she said that her mother wasn't really funny in real life. She would get in front of a studio audience and she would just blossom. But that Ricky was the real comedian.
Yeah.
And she cited some situations. But Lucy was also a great businesswoman.
Right.
And I guess this attests. Anyone else that you have learned?
Well,
tidbits?
I've worked with all kinds of the newer generation, Selena Gomez and Snoop Dogg and all those, newer stars. But I really, as a Hollywood historian, I like to remember fondly the moments I've had with some people that have been around for a while. Carol Burnett comes to mind.
Yeah,
I mean, what a genius.
Yeah.
And Rita Hayworth is one of my favorite actresses from the golden age, the love goddess.
Absolutely.
And I knew she had been on her show. So when somebody comes in, I usually did a little research. And so when I had my moments with Carol Burnett, I asked her about Rita Hayworth. And it was great. Rita Hayworth was an incredible person also. She was Fred Astaire's favorite dance partner.
Absolutely.
A lot of people think it's Ginger Rogers, but
That's
it was
right.
really Rita Hayworth that was his favorite. And she came up through dancing and married Orson Welles and had married the Prince of
Aga
Egypt.
Khan,
Yeah.
yes.
So she had an incredible life, but Carol Burnett said she just showed up by herself and was there and right on time, just like the classic actors and actresses would do. They're very trained by the
Oh,
studios
yes,
to
very
be very
much so.
punctual on time and so forth. So it's those little moments that I have with people like Carol Burnett talking about some of my favorite people that
Absolutely.
give me the perspective on Hollywood.
Well, Rita Hayworth unfortunately had Alzheimer's.
That's right.
And her daughter, Yasmin Khan, did so much for that disease.
That's right.
And I guess the last movie Rita Hayworth made was Separate Tables. Is that correct?
She made a few more after that. They came from Cordora and
Oh, yes.
Pal Joey. She made a couple other ones, but you're right. Her daughter was the one that really brought emphasis onto Alzheimer's, because there was a famous scene or situation where Rita Hayworth got off a plane and she was disorientated and confused, and they said she was drinking, which was incorrect. She actually had the early stages of Alzheimer's. It was starting to, alter her persona.
Right.
And so her daughter and also Rebecca Wells, both of them have done incredible work for Alzheimer's awareness.
What a wonderful tribute
Right.
to their mother.
That's right.
Before we close, and I could go on talking to you for hours.
Thanks, Joe.
And
Same
I
here.
hope you'll come back again.
I will. Be my pleasure.
But what is it that you want this audience? Now, remember, this is called Inspired.
Inspired.
What do you want them to know about you?
About me?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to help people to keep moving forward in their life and look to possibilities and don't be held back by regrets of the past. And like we talked about earlier, create things to look forward to. We have such an incredible opportunity in this life to do so many things, to give back to others, and to make an impact on things. And so that's what I want to do now. I've had businesses, I've done things that were goals, financially and so forth. And now what I want to do is try and help other people and give back some of the things I've learned through my book and through my talks.
Well, you've inspired this guy, and I can thank you very, very much for that. And what is the name of the book again?
10 Ways to Feel Better. Mm-hmm. And it'll be on all the platforms January 1st, 2026. And you can find a copy on my website, or you can read some of my other works at bobbeckian.com.
Oh, great.
And that's where you can find me.
I thank you, and thanks for taking the time, and I hope that this opens up a whole new world for you. You deserve it.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being on your show, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.